welcome to my channel. My name is Courtney. I'm the owner of One Sun, Three Flowers, a wellness company focused on helping BIPOC girls and women practice yoga, mindfulness, and literacy as a means to extending their self-care. I'm glad you made it here with me, so let's go ahead and get into it. All right, as you can see by the title, I'm gonna move to the side because I want y'all to see my fern. Isn't she cute? Just brought her in from outside. It was a hanging basket I've had maybe for like 3 years. So I'm really excited about that because I'm in Chicago. It gets cold outside, but I love the beauty of being able to have living things in the home when the season transitions. So anyway, I didn't come to talk to you all about plants, but if you want to hear more about like plants and how I've been able to keep plants over the years, comment below and let me know. So today's YouTube is about using unconventional methods to help parent your children. I have 2 daughters, and I've been into, I would say that I'm a studied astrologist, and more so, I would think, well, a more accurate way of depicting how I use astrology is it's a little beyond a hobby, but I'm not 100%. I'm self-trained. That's what I should say. I'm self-trained, and I use my intuition to guide me. So some things that I have used astrology for are building relationships, and 2 of the most important relationships that I have are between my daughters and I. So I'm a Virgo, just to give you all context. I'm an earth sign, and I have 2 fire signs, same sign actually. They are Aries. Just thinking about me being earth, they were conceived in the spring when the earth, the Earth's new year, right? The energetic new year. And I know in the Western world, we always talk about the new year being in January, but as we think about the Earth and how it actually starts to awaken and things start to come alive, that happens in the spring. And both of them were conceived in around the month of June. Excuse me. So with that being said, they are both fire signs, as I said, and they are both Aries. Now, if you know anything about Aries are also the first sign of the zodiac. Again, if you're not familiar with astrology, a lot of people believe that the first sign of the zodiac is Capricorn, but that's actually incorrect. The Westernized astrology recognizes that Aries, because of the seasons and the lining of the planets, Aries begins the beginning of the zodiac signs, and Pisces ends that, right? So, and Pisces is my sister sign. They're 6 months apart from me as a Virgo. So, fire signs are fun. They're passionate. They're enthusiastic, right? Specifically, Aries. Aries is a sign that loves. They like going out. They like trying new things. They like being adventurous. And on the opposite side, Aries is a sign that is known for being like when out of balance, emotionally immature, the temper tantrums, not having a good way of dealing with their anger, things like that. And I want to say really quickly before I get into just the idea of them being out of balance, I want to say really quickly that I think that it's important for us to talk about imbalance and out of balance. And so what I mean is each sign has a certain set of characteristics. So these are the attributes that are more likely attributed to this sign, and these are the attributes that are more attributed to the sign when they're in balance and when they're out of balance. And right now, I am specifically talking about your sun sign. So that is the sign that you have most commonly known yourself to be. If you want more explanation on birth charts, I will be happy to provide that in a general sense, but I'm talking about the sun sign. So the reason I say that they're in balance and out of balance characteristics is because when I've talked to people about astrology, they might say, for instance, I know a fair amount of Geminis who do not believe themselves to be two-sided or do not believe themselves to be two-faced. Like they despise that title. And sometimes characteristics simply don't apply, but sometimes these characteristics do apply, but they're actually, the person we're talking about is completely the opposite of that characteristic, because they've done some self-work, they've done some inner child healing, they've done some things to help them to get into alignment or to evolve past that characteristic. And so you might not see that characteristic represented in that specific person. Doesn't mean it's not a characteristic of the sign. Doesn't mean that they're not acting like their sign because they don't show this characteristic. But it does mean perhaps they've done the specific work that is necessary for them to evolve past it. Now, it's also a possibility that they simply just never have battled with that issue. I don't believe that it's in one size fits all. I do believe there's always exceptions to the rule. And so there's that as well. So going back to my daughters, they are Aries. So from their positive attributes, I remember when I had both of them. One, everyone always talks about, oh my gosh, you have two kids in the same sign. I'm like, yes. I won't even elaborate on that, but we know where that's going. So I would say, oh my God, these girls are like meant to teach me something. Like that was the first thing I said when I became a mother. They were meant to teach me something, because Aries, fire sign, with me and being a Virgo, I'm not gonna lie, like I like adventure. I have a free-spirited part to me, but honestly, and again, this only makes sense if you understand fully astrology, but my rising is a Pisces. It's an Aquarius. So I think that they're tugging on that, but I didn't even know that at the time. I wasn't that deep into my birth chart. I just knew that they were going to have me want to do things. And so as a Virgo, we're earth signs. So we like to be at home more. We like organization. We like structure. And then our imbalanced characteristics, we're perfectionists. We're highly analytical, which I think that it's balanced. I think it's imbalanced, because if you're overly analytical, some people see that as always like criticizing. And that's another characteristic, like being very critical. We're very detail oriented. That can go imbalanced or unbalanced or balanced as well. So when they got here, I said, wow, they're going to help teach me something, because for me, I don't like the idea of like wanting to always try new things, always wanting to be on the go. Like I want to leave and do certain things, but they're very like specific. They're thought out. They're pre-planned. Like I don't want to just like regularly just do randomized things. But these girls came in and they helped me to do other things. And so how does this apply to you? Well, I was thinking, I started thinking, what are the characteristics of my children's sign? In balance and out of balance. And I later learned that there is this theory that we don't choose our children choose us. So that even furthered the idea of, what are their imbalanced and outbalanced characteristics? How can that help me? And how can that speak to the work that I need to do or I've already been doing? So the idea of learning to go with the flow, enjoy life at its moment, having fun. These are characteristics that Aries are known by. And literally by parenting them, I've had to learn, and I'm still learning to do those things. Now, on the opposite, managing your temper, not being a hothead, being able to be emotionally vulnerable, those are things also that I'm working on. When I think of Aries, right, being the baby of the zodiac, what screams to me is inner child healing. And if you have followed me on any of my other pages, I have a meditation for inner child healing. That's work that I have done and continue to do, right? Because I don't believe healing stops. Like, I don't believe there's this like destination of, I'm healed. It's like continuously like being exposed and evolving the things and committing to the evolution of ourselves. So I've been doing inner child work. I've been working on emotional vulnerability with my moon sign being in Aquarius. That's not something that comes naturally to me, but the girls have they have targeted this idea, this need for me to want to push myself beyond what I am more comfortable with and really get in tune with my feelings. And that work has not been easy. I could talk to you all more about that later. Things that I've done beyond meditation and yoga. Certainly one of them is absolutely therapy. Shout out to my therapist. But so I've worked on my emotional responses to different situations and trying to help myself learn to enjoy the moment and learn to and also learn to be emotionally regulated. So how could you all use your children's sun signs or astrological chart to help you determine um, how to parent them? So I think that there's a number of different things. One, you can use it as reflection on yourself. These children are blessings to me. There's a reason why I was chosen to be their mother, their father, or whatever is the title that you assume. Right? So starting there, they were chosen for me. They chose me. So then what are the characteristics of their sun sign? Right? So the sign, their birthday, if they're born April 1st, that's an Aries. Okay? So you can look at their sun sign. Their birthday will tell you their exact sun sign without even going deeper into their chart. So you can look at what is the sign of whatever your child's birthday is. And you can look for the balance and imbalance characteristics of that sign. And you can think about through meditation, through silence, through journaling, through conversation, asking yourself, how do these characteristics resonate with me? How do they speak to the work that I need to do for myself or the work that I've already done? So I think that that's a great way to start, is analyzing their sun sign. Another thing that I have found really helpful is, and I don't want to share, I'm going to say a disclaimer, I'm not going to give you my children's entire birth chart. I just think that, and I want to caution you all, if you start to pull your birth chart or your children's birth chart, that's really intimate information. That's not something you want to share with people, too many people. And the people you do share it with, it does need to be in small amounts. Just because that is something very personalized and intimate, so everyone shouldn't get access to it. But when you think about their moon, the moon is a planet of emotions. So how, considering my children's moon sign, they both have two different moon signs, and considering my sign, okay, so I think it's always good to start with yourself. So if you pull your chart, you could use like an app like CoStar, or you could go to like Astro Cafe and pull your chart and see what your moon sign is. And your moon sign, let me back up. In order to go to Astro Cafe or to download the app CoStar, you are going to need your full birthday and the exact place you were born, like the exact city. Like if you're born in a suburb of a major city, if you were born in another country, but then you were quickly flown in here, like whatever the scenario, when you came out of your mother's womb, where were you located? So you need the exact city and you need the time of day. Okay, once you enter that information in, it should pull up your moon sign. Okay, so I hope that clarifies for anyone who is saying, well, how do I find out my information? Once you have your moon sign, then you're going to study the characteristics of moon signs. But one of the ones that I use, and this again is me combining astrology with intuition, I pay attention to the emotions, because the moon is known to be a planet of emotions. So with that idea, I paid attention to what my moon sign was, how it described that I showed up emotionally. And I sat with myself and thought about what resonated with me and what what didn't resonate. Was it just was it just not true? Or was it something that like I didn't want to accept for myself? Okay, so then I paid attention to those characteristics, and I thought about how I felt about the characteristics, and I thought about how the characteristics could positively or negatively impact my children. And I also thought about how the characteristics have positively or negatively impacted my relationship with my parents. And the reason is just because a lot of times we'll take our own generational, I don't want to say trauma, but it could be trauma, but patterns or ways of being, and pass those methodologies down or absorb them and use them in our parenting. So I'm thinking about how I've been taught about emotions, what my astrological sign says, and how I've adapted that ideology and used it as a way to parent my children. So that's one, like starting with self. Number two, I started thinking about I looked at my children. I pulled their chart, right? And I looked at what were the characteristics for those signs. And so I thought about how that shows up when I'm parenting them, right? So like if you had an Aries moon, neither one of my children are Aries moons, but if I did have an Aries moon and I was trying to support them, I will be mindful of the fact that Aries moons, Aries tends to have a characteristic of passion and temper and hot-headedness, right? So I would think about that as it comes to helping my children and helping them learn to get control of their emotions, trying to be understanding of helping them work through their anger, things like that. If I had a Virgo moon, I might think about how my child, and if you hear chilling, I apologize. That's my dog, and he ironically is also in the Aries. So I'm just surrounded with like inner child healing energy. But I would think about, what sign was it? Let's say Virgo, right? Because that's my sign. Let's say one of my children had a Virgo moon. If they had a Virgo moon, I would think about how they're detail oriented, how they're critical, how they're like perfection. And so I would think about those things and use it as a way to teach them to be a little bit more tender to themselves, or a little bit more understanding of their expectations, or how to honor the desires that they have, but also honor the fact of concepts or ideas like evolution, making steps in the right direction, strides, not celebrating yourself, so you're not always criticizing yourself for trying to get to the next place. Understanding that perfection does not exist, but you were made in the idea of perfection. So things like that, right? So I would use their moon signs to gain understanding. And for me, honestly, I sometimes, based off my children's moon sign, I will find their, like, just being honest as a parent, sometimes even having information, you still find things frustrating. They still are upsetting to you because they might not either align with you, or they might trigger something in you that's very similar. So sometimes I'm able to detach from the situation and use that as a way to connect more fully with the situation, and not necessarily like use it as a way to like hyper focus on like my children and the things that they say or have done that I find problematic. Mercury is another sign. So if you think about Mercury, again, that's the planet of communication. So that's how they communicate. So you would go to the characteristics of the sign, and then you would use that as a way to inform yourself on how your children tend to communicate. So, okay, if sticking with the let's use a different sign, Gemini. Gemini is a sign that is ruled by Mercury. We've already talked about the characteristics of the sign. They're also, Mercury is a planet of communication. That's why I say look at their Mercury. If you have a child who has a Gemini rules their Mercury, Mercury for them, which is the planet of communication, and Mercury already rules Gemini, and you have a child who is likely to want to talk. So just being mindful of how you can show up for them, how you can create space for conversation, how you can help them share their ideas and their creativity, like holding space for the way that they communicate. And just another thing I want to add is you can look at the traditional characteristics of the sign. So for instance, what are the traditional characteristics of Gemini, and use them to apply what you see with your child's communication patterns. Or you can actually look up what are the characteristics of Gemini Mercury, and then that would get even more specific for your child. One thing I've read, and I'm not sure how I feel about this, I go back and forth, just as we evolve as a society and information is so readily available. A lot of people will say that children shouldn't have access to their birth charts prior to them getting to being 18, because you don't want them to fall into like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You want them to be able to not operate based off this is what they say I act like or I should act like, but actually allowing them to do their own identity work. Now for me, I have conversations with my children about astrology because that's like a common language that we use in our household. It's a way that I use to evaluate and create meaning for the people in my lives and just look at the different planets and how they show up. So I have not directly shown, I guess I will say that I have not directly shown my children their birth chart, but we do use it as a conversation for them to be able to, for me to help them like navigate through the different spaces of their lives. And more specifically, because I have a preteen and a teen, I use it as a way to contextualize their relationships with other people. So when they're having a hard time with a certain friend or a family member, I kind of think about where their different planets are. Again, I just named like their sun sign, their moon sign, their Mercury, their planet of communication, and how that translates or doesn't translate to other signs. For instance, my oldest daughter has several friends whose sun sign is the same as her moon. So for me, again, just intuitively, I'm like, okay, so you really enjoy this friendship because it feeds you emotionally. And so I'm able to think about, okay, this is why this relationship might have some meaning. Obviously, we know that there are multiple factors on what makes people want to maintain a friendship or hold certain relationships. I'm just speaking from the astrological perspective. So I use that as a way of contextualizing and gaining understanding on the type of friends that she has and the type of people she has a tendency to attract. And I think that if you have teenagers or certainly even older, you could also use the Venus sign. Venus is love and relationships, so that could also carry into friendships, but also like dating and romantic partners. How do your children, like as they're navigating through that space, for people who have teens or grown children, how can you use that as a way of helping them to navigate through their different relationships and their different friendships, as a way of helping them like trying to find and seek healthy friendships or partnerships with other people. So paying attention to what planet is their Venus located in, and then how does that translate into the relationships that they have formed or are forming. So those are a few planets that I would like to talk about in this video. Certainly you can go into some of the other planets. Saturn, for instance, is like it's about lessons and things like that. So what are the lessons for them to learn, or what characteristics, what planets might be helpful in helping them learn these different lessons, things like that. And if you want a part 2, let me know. I'll be happy to provide a part 2 or go a little bit more into depth about how you can use birth charts to connect with your children and help parent them for children or teens or adult children. Again, thank you for watching my channel. If you have not, please make sure you hit subscribe and follow me on all my channels. Right here, I can be found at One Sun, Three Flowers on Instagram, Twitter, all social media handles. And it was great sitting with you guys this afternoon. Have a great day.